I'm glad that you're here. Glad that I'm here. I just arrived actually, and didn't leave myself quite enough time to get from where I was to where I needed to be. I'm co-founder of a company called TwigKit. We're a London-based software company that provides a library of user interface components for rapidly building search-based applications. And I might have a moment at the end of the talk to show you a few examples of some of the stuff that we've been doing recently. But these are some of our customers. Yeah, like I said, we're based in London. We just arrived into San Diego a couple days ago. And just out of curiosity, how many other people do we have who were traveling to the conference from overseas? Show of hands. OK, a few. How many from Europe? Any other people coming from Europe? Yeah. And what about the UK? Any? I see my two colleagues here. OK, very good. It's good to see you. Great. So I have a lot of things I want to cover today. And in particular, I'm planning to sort of divide the 35 minutes that we have into roughly two sections. To first look at some of the key concepts behind sort of how users actually go about searching and sort of what that looks like. So we'll be looking at, it's a bit more of the sort of theoretical side of how people search. And then in the second part, I want to get very hands-on and look at lots of different examples for a design solution. So lots of different user interface patterns that we'll look at there. You won't find it too surprising that a lot of the material that I'm covering today is stuff that's also addressed in the book as well, and it sort of shares this sort of organizational scheme, if you will. So if you're in the back and just coming in, you're welcome to come further up. There's a couple of seats here in the first few rows, so don't be shy. Right, so key concepts. In particular, I'd like to look at 4 different things in sort of the first half of this talk. And that is, first, the different levels of expertise held by users, and then the sort of spectrum of information needs that sort of motivate people to search in the first place, and then how that sort of plays out, sort of the stages of information seeking that results as sort of the output of those information needs. And then briefly look at the surrounding context in which the user is sort of operating. So starting with user expertise. Now, even though this little boy, who's my 3-year-old son, does look very smart there, he's probably not going to have the same amount of sort of expertise when it comes to, let's say, doing a search as maybe you or I would. Although he is pretty good on his VTech little computer there. So by way of getting into this idea of user expertise, I'm curious, how many of you all brought a camera with you of one sort or another to San Diego? And this could, yeah, please raise your hand. And this can even include if you have a camera on your phone, right? So, yeah, so almost all of us have at least a camera on our phone nowadays. So how many people brought something a bit a bit fancier? So a point and shoot or better. Do we have? Yeah, we have quite a few point and shoots. And what about any serious sort of SLRs? Did anybody bring a real camera? Okay, very good, very good. And okay, what about a large format? Anyone lugging one of these around? So I think the point here is that there's a lot of different types of cameras, right? From the very simple on our phone to the very sophisticated, and people tend to gravitate towards the type of camera that sort of fits with their level of expertise, right? So if you don't have much expertise, you don't really care too much about photography, you're probably happy with just touching a button on your phone to taking the photo, right? But if you are sort of a semi-pro, a serious amateur, you like being able to control the aperture and the time of the exposure and the ISO and all of this kind of thing. Whereas sort of a novice photographer would be overwhelmed by all of these controls, right? It would be too much for them. So we could call this sort of domain expertise. how much expertise someone has in the particular area of photography or any other type of subject matter. But there's a second kind of expertise that we could also think about, and that's sort of technical expertise. In particular, how good is someone using a computer? We might say how tech savvy are they, right? The interesting thing is that, of course, you have some people who are domain experts in certain areas. So my father-in-law, for instance, is a medical doctor. He has a high level of expertise in medicine, but he has a low level of expertise when it comes to using computers. He actually types with 2 fingers like this. So there's this, these sort of 4 different types of users that if we combine these 2 dimensions of domain expertise with technical expertise. And in the case of search, technical expertise being really how savvy is the person with using search engines, right? Do they know things like how to use Boolean logic and how the underlying search engine works? And if we look at just 2 of these groups of people, we would find that what we could call double novices, so those with low domain expertise and low technical expertise, they have been found to use a greater number of queries. It takes them sort of more tries to find what they're looking for, typing things into the search box. They also exhibit backwards-oriented behavior. They're shy to venture too far away from the search result page. Instead, they might click on one result and then they're not sure, so they go back to the search page, and this sort of like backwards-oriented behavior. They also spend a lot more time on a given search task than do experts. And if we look at the other side of the spectrum and look at the double experts, those with both who are tech savvy and have a degree of expertise in the subject matter that they're sort of researching, these people examine many more pages than novices do, and they don't sort of go back very often. Instead, they sort of go deep. They do a search and they go to find a page, click on a result, look at a page, follow a hyperlink to another document. From there, they find something else that is leading them closer to their goal. And so they dive deeper instead of sort of retreating. They also make faster decisions. They're able to determine the relevancy of a given page more quickly than double novices. So we could also investigate these other 2 quadrants, but I think that sort of paints a picture of the sort of different spectrum of user expertise. Here's an article that I did a couple of years ago for a site called Boxes and Arrows that describes this the same sort of idea. So questions for you to consider then in terms of your own search applications. How familiar are your users with your particular subject matter? So let's say that you're an automotive website. Are your users sort of pro mechanics, or are they car novices? And how you answer that question will dictate very drastically how you create your website and your search experience. Is there a big gap in the subject matter expertise of your users? Do you have some users who are really pro users, and then others who are novices, or do all of your users fall in one camp or another? And so likewise for the sort of tech savvy dimension, how technical are they? And again, is there a big gap in this technical expertise? So thinking through these types of questions is one way to help us get in the right frame of mind to design good search experiences. So that's a look at user expertise. Next, we'll quickly look at information needs. Now, I'm curious, how many people went out looking for a place to have dinner last night after leaving the Tipsy Crow? Several? Yeah, lots of people. So how did you go about doing it? So did you already know of a restaurant in your mind that you sort of already knew of, and you just sort of found directions to that place? Or did you sort of go out wandering around, just looking for something interesting? Yep. Yeah, just walking around, yeah. So there's different, when choosing a restaurant, there's different strategies that we could take, right? We could already, if we had sort of domain expertise in San Diego restaurants, we might have a place in mind and be able to get directions directly there. Or we might just want to go out and explore. The same is true when looking for information. There's different types of motivations that people have that dictate sort of how they go about doing searches. And some of these could be so the casual motive. That's kind of like when you went out sort of exploring last night, just looking for something to pop up that looked interesting. Likewise, the casual motive is where you don't have anything specific in mind. You're just looking to sort of have a good time or have fun, even kill time sometimes. But the classic case for what we typically associate with search is probably the lookup motive, and that's where you have a specific fact that you need to know. So if you want to know who directed the movie Third Man, that's a simple lookup query. But you might also be willing to really sort of investigate and gather information and spend a lot of time learning or investigating a certain subject matter. And these motives are more likely to take a large amount of time. You might return to the same investigation over the case of many days or many months even. So there's search motive. There's also a second sort of dimension on which we could think about information needs, and that is the types of searches that result. So are people, are users interested in information, textual information, or are they, if you're interested in a restaurant, you're more likely to be looking for something in the geographic area, or other use cases like instead of searching sort of public data, maybe you want to search, only your calendar, only your computer. And finally, it could be something where you're trying to make a sort of a transaction. And if we combine these two, so search type and search motive, we get sort of a picture of the spectrum of different information needs. And these, all of the ones identified here, are actually backed up by research. So people have done diary studies with users and actually figured out, recorded the various information needs that people encountered. And to give you just a few examples of these, so on the window shopping, so the intersection of a casual search motive and an information type search, someone might say, I don't know what I want, just show me stuff. That's kind of like when you went out, looking for a restaurant last night. Maybe you were at the Tipsy Crow and a point of trivia came up, right? Like maybe you wondered, maybe in the conversation, the question came up, when did Bob Marley die, and what did he die of? That would be an example of the trivia case. Or at the intersection of lookup and geographic, maybe you were trying to get directions to Luigi's Pizza or something like that. And finally, over here at investigate and transaction, maybe you've identified a particular, the exact make and model of a car that you want to buy, and you want to set up product alerts that tell you whenever someone else has posted a car that meets those criteria. So again, questions for you to consider in the context of your own search application. What motivates people to use your search app? And do they want to quickly look up a simple fact, or are they more interested in going sort of a deep dive approach? And again, what are the types of searches that your users might want to perform? And how are you doing? Sort of, are what your users wanting to do, is that the same thing as what you're actually facilitating? Or is there a gap there? So we've looked at user expertise, we've looked at information needs, and now we'll look quickly at the different stages of information seeking. Now, I gave the example of product monitoring, of looking for a car. Has anyone recently bought a car, let's say in the last couple of years? Yeah? So how long, did you just go out one day and buy, the idea popped into your mind and you went to a dealership and bought a car and came back? How many people did that? Yeah, okay, a few, yeah, cool. How many people spent like, days, weeks, months trying to find the perfect one?
Bought 3 trucks and then returned the 2 I didn't want.
Okay, nice. So when we look at buying a car, it's not, except for a few of us, it's not usually a process that happens overnight or in an afternoon, right? It's usually a drawn-out process. And buying a car is really a classic example of a search problem as well. And there's probably, well, there are many different stages that a person goes through when looking for information, or and that can include something like buying a car. Now, the stages that I'm about to share with you are the product of research from a lady named Carol Cofounder, and it basically presents search as sort of like or information seeking as sort of a funnel. And on the far side of this funnel is the moment of initiation. This is when you or the user recognizes that they have a need for information, or recognizes that, hey, it's probably time that I buy a new car. After that comes a phase of selection. And so this is when you say, okay, I probably, my wife says I can't get a motorcycle, and so maybe I should look at, medium-sized family cars as a good fit for my needs. And so that would be an example of making a selection, committing to a general direction. Once that has occurred, people then often explore all the different options within that category. So, show me all of the used cars in the medium family car category. And this can bring up hundreds, thousands of different results. And we often spend a lot of time stuck in this phase. And many people, in fact, don't ever make it past this exploration phase. It's a major blocker. But for the people that do, they come out with a formulation of their exact need. So you have identified the exact sort of make and model that you want. I want a Volkswagen Golf, 5 years old, under 50,000 miles. That's an example of having formulated exactly what you're looking for. And then comes a phase of collection, where you then go out and look for all the Volkswagen Golfs under 50,000 miles, less than 5 years old. And eventually you would select one of those and have the action resolving this whole process. So again, in the context of your own search application, at what phase of the process are people coming to use your search application? In many cases, like many automotive websites even, only focus on the very end of that process. They don't. If you go to many of them, they sort of expect you to already know the exact make and model that you want, and they're really focused just on the collection and action phase. So when are people coming to your search app? What do you currently facilitate? And is there scope for you to engage users earlier in the process, right? Because if you can help users figure out what car they want in the first place, you're a lot more likely to, be able to sort of, close that transaction in the end. So lastly, context. Who can see something in this photo other than just a tree? Okay, yeah, okay, all right. I had fun looking at finding these photos a couple days ago, so I didn't include just one. I include several. So can you see the animal in this one? Yeah, cool. All right, this is the hardest one, I think. What do you see? You saw it already? Okay, it took me like 3 minutes of staring at this. But yeah, you can see there's a leopard right there in the corner. This is just a cheeky way of getting into the idea of context. And I'm sort of going to whiz through this now rather than spending time on it, so that we can go straight into looking at design solutions. But there's several different types of context that we could think about, from the sort of task context, which is like the information needs that motivate the user. There's sort of the physical context of time and space. There's the mental and emotional state of the user, the social context of the people around them, and the sort of physical environment as well. And I'll have to just say, if you want to know more, you can get the book and look at it there. Okay, now for the really fun part is design solutions. So we're going to look at lots of different examples, focusing on really the bread and butter of search user interfaces. So entering the query, displaying results, and faceted navigation. So we'll start with the real absolute basics, and that is the search box itself. Basically, don't be too clever. Don't try to make the search box look like a bucket with a finger pointing to it, because people won't see it and won't notice that that's search. A few examples from around the web are in order: Amazon, eBay, Airbnb, Google, Bing. So yeah, I'll just suffice it to say, make your search box look like a search box and not something else. Now, if you're also designing for mobile devices, you have a few different options of where to place the search box. It could be in the top navigation bar. You could have a secondary toolbar if you need to put other stuff at the very top of the screen. Or if search is sort of a secondary feature of your mobile experience, you could also hide it behind a sort of pull to reveal gesture, which is, it's fine for secondary. When search isn't the primary means of interaction. The benefit is, it's there when the user needs it and not getting in the way when the users don't need it. But the downside is it's less discoverable, right? They might not ever find it. Now, in addition to typing keywords into a search box, there's also, especially on mobile devices, a number of additional possible input methods. So it could be location. So these examples are Zillow, Rightmove, and Yelp. So being able to input your current location as the search query, really. You could have audio input, so whether it's Siri or Google Voice or SoundHound, which is the app that sort of listens to what's playing in the background and looks up the name of the song and the artist. Or it could be a visual input, using the phone, the camera on your phone to take a picture of a barcode. Or I think this is Google. If you take a picture of a product, it reads the text on the front, I think, and figures out what it is. And lastly, you might also be able to use your finger or the mouse to draw, a bounding box around a certain geographic area, or to create, chemical compounds or something to do a query on. So we have this. We've looked at the search box and alternative input methods. Now, for the cases where you are using a search box, a great pattern that's commonly used is what we could call as you type suggestions. Now, I think there are three different sort of subcategories, three different types of as you type suggestions. Now, I'm going to show you an image, and whoever says the person's name in the photo first gets awarded this book, okay? So, who knows who this is? Stephen Hawking. Who said that first? Cool. Yeah, this is Stephen Hawking. So as I'm sure you know, he can't talk anymore on his own. So he uses this computer device, and I think it's actually monitors his eyesight. I think he's actually able to look at certain. Yeah. Okay.
I worked on it in grad school.
Oh, really? Oh, cool. Awesome. So I use this example because what we could call autocomplete is kind of like this idea of getting what's in your brain, what's in your mind, getting the idea from your head into the computer, inputting that into the search box. And so I see this as being cases where you're auto-completing on sort of a set list of terms, right? So airports, there's only a certain number of them in the world. You're probably already, you know exactly which one, you know where you want to fly, you want to go to San Diego or London. And so autocomplete helps you get that idea from your brain into the search box. Same for if you're looking up a ticker symbol, you know the company that you're looking for. So that's autocomplete. I think there's a second category, which we could call auto-suggest. And here, this might not be the best example, but you may not have completely formulated the idea in your head. So auto-suggest might introduce new ideas to you and suggest things that maybe you hadn't thought of before. So if you're on eBay, you're searching for guitar, and it might suggest, well, do you want an electric, acoustic, when you perhaps hadn't formulated that in your mind. A third category is what we could call instant results. And whereas autocomplete and autosuggest, when you accept one of those suggested terms, you're then taken to a search page, right? So if you're using Google and accept a suggestion, you get a Google search page. However, in the case of instant results, you skip the result page altogether, and you might jump straightly to the product page for iPad mini. So I see autocomplete, autosuggest, and instant results being three different types of edu-type suggestions, all very useful, and it's even possible to combine these multiple forms as well. Another example. And the same certainly applies to mobile devices as well. So that's entering the query. Now, once the user has typed something into the search box or input a query and another method, then hopefully you have some results to show them, right? There's a few just basic approaches that we could take to showing results. We could present them as a list, which is great for displaying lots of metadata. You have space to present a title, usually a description, this sort of thing. But if the user is more interested in the visual content of the results rather than the textual content, an image grid might be more appropriate. And of course, if they're interested in geographic results, then a map. And lastly, there's might be some use cases for things like augmented reality, such as providing walking directions or maybe even driving directions one day, or something like that. Now, this kind of ties in with the search motive and search type that we were talking about in sort of part one of the talk. Users may often want the ability to choose which display format they're being presented. So ways to do that could be having a segmented control, so list map images, for instance, or if you just have two different display formats, a single button such as map there in the top right could toggle between, let's say, a list view and a map view. Now on the web, the same sort of concepts apply. So here, Airbnb, they have a segmented control here for choosing between these several different display methods. In fact, this is where the TwigKit guys are staying in San Diego here, rather than a hotel. I'm going to quickly skip on so that nobody's stalking where we're at. Okay. Right. And lastly, we'll look at sort of the different types, different combinations of faceted navigation. So the first thing that to think about is where the facets are presented. So whether you have a vertical approach, putting them in a sidebar like this, or a horizontal approach across the top, or perhaps a hybrid approach like Travel Match. These are all collapsed over here on the left, but those are facets on the left as well as on the top. Safe to say that I think pretty much everyone is putting them on the left nowadays. And then you could also think about whether to have facets opened or closed by default. Like we said here, over on the left, all the facets are closed. Probably the more common approach is to have all of the facets always visible. And you could also have a hybrid approach where you collapse some facets and have others expanded, and you sort of let users control this and remember their settings. This is a search UI that we helped build. Then when it comes to displaying faceted navigation, there's also a few different options. You could have text links, which are great for when users want to sort of and filters together. So search for both recipe and Rachel Ray, for instance. But you might also want checkboxes, which are great for when users want to be able to select black or white or gray. And then there's lots of examples of custom controls as well, whether it's using a slider or using a color picker or many other different sort of widgets. Now, when it comes to interacting with faceted navigation, there are, again, a few different approaches. Typically, when plain links are used, we're used to clicking on something, the page refreshes with that filter applied. But another case might be to have an instant update approach. So this is LinkedIn, and what happens is when you, let's say that you click on one of the relationship filters over there, the page sort of freezes for a bit while it applies that filter, and then you can, once that filter is applied, the sort of overlay goes away, and you can continue interacting and applying other filters. The reason it doesn't let you just click a bunch of things all at the same time, of course, is that that might lead to 0 results, right? So the designers of this wanted to apply this filter to the query first, update any of the facets being shown so that it wouldn't be possible to apply a query that leads to 0 results. The other approach is to, instead of updating things instantly, to have a button that the user needs to click to apply the filters. So in this example, we see that there's one sort of apply filters button at the top. And what happens is that users can click the checkboxes in multiple facets on this particular example and hit view results. Now, the risk here, again, is that it's will be very likely to create 0 result situations when some of these terms might be mutually exclusive. So a workaround to that would be to have an apply button for each facet, right? So you can select multiple sports, football, cycling, basketball, and then hit apply filters to apply all 3 of those at once. But you couldn't, for instance, select football, cycling, basketball, Stratford, Central London, Southeast, and apply all of those at the same time. I think we're almost out of time, so we'll have questions in just a moment. And we're almost done here, but well, I'll skip through these real quickly. But I was just going to show different examples of breadcrumbs. So over on the left, the faceted navigation has the selected terms are bolded. You could have a bread box, or you could have sort of breadcrumbs going horizontally, or you could have sort of a hybrid approach. Here we have sort of facets that are filters that are grouped by facet, but they occupy sort of multiple rows like the bread box. And on mobile devices, you have an option between having faceted navigation controls on the main sort of content screen, so just above the results, for instance, or you could have, there's a few examples of the inline controls, or you could have a dedicated refinement panel, so a complete screen dedicated to faceted navigation and sorting. And here are a few examples from eBay, Yelp, and Airbnb. I'll just quickly skip through some of these because I'm running out of time. Yeah. Right. In 15 seconds, I'll quickly show you a default TwigKit application. The reason I'm here talking about designing the search experience is the last few years I've focused purely on designing search, and this just quickly communicates how some of that thinking has gone into our library of user interface components that also work on mobile devices and can be tailored to many different websites. These are a few examples of who are using TwigKit: Financial Times, WGSN, and a patent research application. And lastly, I know I've whizzed through the presentation today, so I will be posting the slides first to our blog, so you can, if you're interested in the slides, you can look for them to appear there. And I thank you for your patience as I've sped talk through this, and look forward to hopefully getting a chance to talk with you after the presentation. So, thank you.